Right, pop quiz time. What kind of games do Double Fine make? If you responded just now with kind of funny adventure games, or even ridiculously behind budget and slightly late Kickstarter projects, if you responded instead of that with kind of weird puzzle rhythm action games, then either you're strangely preconditioned or you've heard of Dropchord before. Chris Charlton for wheredoesgodzillapoop.com. And this is Dropchord on iOS. It just came out on iOS yesterday. It's also available on Android and on PC. But if you're playing on PC, you kind of need the weird motion leap finger tracking device that's recently come out, and we don't have that in the Yokohama branch of Where Does Godzilla Poop Towers. So we're playing on iOS today. This is... yeah, it's a kind of rhythm action puzzle game. The only real way to describe it, or the only real way to show what it is to play it here. So what I'm doing with Dropchord is I've got both my thumbs on either side of this giant circle, and it's drawing the titular chord in between that I've got to sort of trace over these orange nodes that are popping up. Dropchord kind of describes itself as a rhythm game. It's not really. These nodes are kind of tied to the music, but not so much that if you have no rhythm, as I don't, or if you're tone deaf, you won't be able to do well. It's best to kind of just think of it as sort of a puzzle game where you've got to figure out how to pass your line through all these nodes while avoiding those red razor blade scratch things. You can sort of jump off, as I just did there, to get through those lines. You can make a little jump with your thumbs in order to avoid them, but it's not entirely reliable. So right there I took my thumbs off and it didn't realize it until slightly too late. So I don't know whether that's something more responsive with the leap on the PC or not. If you do well, you get like this awesome bonus mode where everything goes sort of very Dyad-esque or Brett-ish, and if you're into this kind of art, as I am, then this is... that kind of makes up for any failings this game has. The eagle-eyed viewers there might have noticed that there's a little leap in my score there. That's because I'm having terrible problems with the capture software and I had to start again. That's where Dave goes, oh, you should get a proper PC that can do air server better. But still. So sometimes you have like different mechanics installed, so there are these sections where you have to tap on the icons that are, when you have to do two taps, ever so slightly too small for your fingers when you're playing on an iPhone, which is a little bit irritating. Yeah, so those bits kind of don't come over quite as well as the general gameplay here, which is really about pattern recognition. It feels more similar, if anything, to Super Hexagon than to a rhythm game, and that's by no means a bad thing. What perhaps is a bad thing is that the way the game pauses is if you take your fingers away from the screen, which means that if you scratch your nose or animatedly make a point, then the game pauses. But hey, I seem to have done alright there, so some of these gems sort of take a little bit longer to go away, which means you run out of time, as I just did there. And yeah, so I mean, well, the game in itself is very simple. There's not too much going on here. It does look awesome and it sounds awesome, so it's got that going for it. Yeah, it's just those kind of timing things that kind of irritate me whenever you have more than one, I suppose, enemy you might call it, on the screen. It's like I'm passing this pattern perfectly fine, but I'm screwing myself up because of the way that there's a slight sort of lag when it comes to taking your fingers off the screen. Also, you've got to take your fingers off the screen just long enough to make the jump, so to speak, but not so long that the game pauses, which is weird interface design. well here, I guess, kind of. So you get a percentage and a star rating. The better you do, the more health you get, and the more health you get, the more likely you are to survive, basically. When you run into these red blobs of doom. So I'm on quite a decent run here, which is a sure sign that, once again, the capture software is going to fail me. Because that's the way this has worked. Slight peek beneath the scenes. This video has taken at least 15 attempts to make so far, so I'm in a pretty foul mood. Success. But usually, yeah, I'm kind of okay at this bit. It's when it introduces the spin mechanic, we'll see later on, that things kind of go to hell for me. Yay. Yeah, so it's about this point in the game that things go to shit. So there's a swipe mechanic here, where you spin around and you kind of have to fill up these bars. And it speaks to kind of, I guess, how the game doesn't really explain much of itself to you. That I have no real idea. You know, once you start spinning, the cord just spins around until those things fill up. Makes perfect sense as you're watching it right here. But just there, as soon as an enemy appears, surely when I spin, I run into the enemy by, you know, just by the nature of how that mechanic works. So I always die here, and I'm never quite sure why. I should just probably watch high-level Dropchord play. But it seems to be something that the game itself should be explaining to me. Or maybe I should just wait. I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, really where much of the game feels quite precise and quite exacting, that you're controlling this very straight line through these nodes. Sorry, I fucked up because I paused again. You know, where much of the game feels very precise, this spin mechanic suddenly goes, whoa, spin like crazy, and you know, get these done with proper timing. But I just, yeah, screwed up there again because there are two. But if I wait for him to disappear, then I'd run out of time to do the sequence, and now I'm dead. So yeah, it just feels like it kind of communicates itself kind of badly, or introduces one mechanic slightly too far, I guess. Yeah, so that's the main play mode there. There's also where the sort of online leaderboard competition lies is in full mix mode, which basically takes all the mechanics and the patterns that you've seen before and sort of presents them to you at a faster rate, assumes you know how the game works and so forth, and layers in a whole bunch more visual effects, which look a whole lot more awesome, but even though I'm playing on iPhone 5 here, later on it kind of really screws with the frame rate of the game. So at least you can blame that for your failures rather than your own inadequacies, I suppose. There's also no pauses in this. There's no, hey, you finished the track. It's just, it keeps on going until you die, so it's a lot more intense. But yeah. That's Dropchord in essence, and once again the sounds dropped up on my recorder, so rather than swear incessantly at the bloody monitor, which is what I've been doing all morning, to be honest, although you haven't heard it, thankfully, I think we'll leave it there. Yeah, it's a good looking, good sounding little puzzle game. Just don't kind of expect a rhythm game, kind of expect something in the more super hexagon mold, and you might have something to enjoy for a few brief minutes. Yeah, I've been Chris Charlton for wheredoesgodzillapoop.com. Head on over to that website for more on Dropchord and much more. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.